I'm Tyrion.
No, I'm Tyrion. But I'm Tyrion. I'm Hand of the Queen.
No, I'm the left.
Sansa's my wife.
Spoilers.
Welcome back to Nonsense Reviews. My name is Brandon Scott Ellis.
My name is Scott Ellis.
And we are Nonsense Reviews, and we have a very special guest for this review. We have Lord Tyrion. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We just wrapped up filming.
Wait a minute, I'm Tyrion too.
Don't forget about me, the third Tyrion. Alright, so anyway, we would like to review Season 8 of Game of Thrones.
It's very long overdue. Scott, you've been watching it since how long?
Probably since 2013.
So you've been pretty much watching it through and through throughout the years.
That's correct.
And just like a lot of fans, I'm sure, as each season went, you were thinking in your head and predicting what could possibly happen. What's going to happen? Will Daenerys do this? Will Jon Snow bang this chick? What's up with Lord Tyrion's voice? And you probably went through this throughout many years, and to see this conclusion, a lot of people were disappointed. A lot of people. You got me into Game of Thrones. You started over the summer. You tried to get me into it.
I actually want to tell you a funny story of how I actually started watching Game of Thrones. So, I bought the first episode on my Xbox One at the time. And then I loved it so much that I took my grandma's credit card and then I bought seasons 1 through 3 with it.
I took my grandma to watch the sex scenes. Oh, I thought you were bad with the fan fiction, Scott. What is this?
Just keep watching. It gets better and more graphic.
What, when they climax? So anyway, my story. Scott tried to get me into it as I tried to get him into Lord of the Rings over the summer. The first season is kind of slow. It's very diplomatic. I'm part of the throne. No, I'm part of the throne.
No, I'm part of the throne.
So it's sort of like that. But then I started to get really into it on my own a few months later. Then I started watching. Then I couldn't stop watching. The show is an achievement. An incredible, not even TV show, it's a cinematic achievement. The shots are amazing, it looks brilliant, the CG doesn't suck, and I'm used to CW shows, so like, the writing is spectacular, you care so much about the different characters, you never know what's going to happen, and anything could happen in any episode in the show. And a lot of shows, they'll save deaths for maybe the mid-season finale or the finale. This show, anything goes. And that's what I respected about it and have continued to respect about it. And that's why I binged pretty much the entire show. But I always had in the back of my head that the last season may not be so great. And I saw Rise of Skywalker not too long ago. I know what a bad finale to a franchise is.
Oh, they fly now!
They fly now?
They fly now!
Rise of Skywalker was just stupid, so I had it in my head. And when I watched the show, I went through each episode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I was just waiting for that point where I just really would not like it, where I'd stop caring. And although I am here to say that it is not a perfect season, I can't say I was at the point where I was when I watched something like Rise of Skywalker.
The real flaw, I believe, with Season 8 was that it was very rushed in some scenes, some episodes.
Right, so...
But overall, it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, we got to recap here. We have the threat of the White Walkers, which has been teased at heavily throughout the show, probably since the beginning.
Well, the very first
very first scene, yeah, so it has been teased at. We have the whole threat of Cersei and Daenerys trying to get the Iron Throne. You have a lot of subplots to deal with the Hounds trying to get to his brother, and just all these different plots with so many characters. And it's a lot to do in one season, and they did it in one season, which I have to say, it probably would have worked out better. I think you could have done this in 3 seasons, honestly. This season could have been, Season 8 could have been the White Walkers, that whole threat. See, the next season could have been dealing with Cersei, And then the last season could have been dealing with Daenerys as a tyrannical, the Mad Queen. That's my opinion. But with everything in it, as you said before, I really thought it was a masterpiece in its own right.
In so many ways, it wrapped up a lot of the character arcs, like what's his name?
Theon Greyjoy.
Theon Greyjoy's character arc wrapped up very nicely.
A character who was so terrible towards the beginning, then became this little nothing of a character who was beaten down and broken, who eventually grew to sacrifice himself for someone he stabbed in the back earlier on in the show. So it came together sort of beautifully in that end. And they sort of did that for a lot of characters. A lot of people complain about how they treated certain characters. They're probably talking mostly about Daenerys, maybe Jon Snow or Tyrion, like the main characters. But a lot of characters had some great moments. Like there's a scene in, I believe it was the second episode, where a bunch of characters are together getting ready for the big fight that's to come. And they have, what's her face? Lady Brienne? Brienne. And she admits she's not a knight. And they have this very touching little ceremony and moment where Jaime
Knights her.
And they had such a bond, which was so great throughout the show. And it's a very touching moment. And a show that can have that, a season, even with that, with all of its flaws, I can't say it's a bad piece of television. When it has moments that take time to really develop characters or complete character moments, I can't say it's particularly bad. It may not be perfect, but...
No, like we say, it should have been stretched out, but, you know, budget constraints couldn't stretch out in contracts and such.
Right.
But, you know, they did the best they could with what they had, and it really was rewarding to a lot of fans, I believe. It was rewarding to see Cersei fall. It was rewarding to see... It was rewarding to see Daenerys... Well, it was rewarding to see Daenerys take the throne, but then also rewarding to see Jon Snow take the throne afterwards. Well, not take the throne, but dethrone someone who turned against, you know...
Yeah.
Internally, she had a lot of battles.
Right.
So, there's that. And it was also really rewarding to see what happened with Arya, where she... Who did she kill?
The White Walker.
Well, yeah, that's a big one.
I wouldn't forget that.
That was, you know, more I think about it, like, her father killed somebody for in the first episode of the first season, killed somebody for fleeing the wall and then saying that the White Walkers were coming. But then at the very end, his daughter killed the very last, or killed the Night King.
Yeah. It all comes together in some way, shape, or form. So, I mean, you have the first episode where all the characters you know and love are in Winterfell. They're getting ready for the battle. And episode 2, I love that episode. It's just characters sitting down, talking. Very well-earned character moments, like Lady Brienne, and you have the Hound talking to the Lord of Light guy, the eye patch.
So why does the Lord of Light keep bringing you back?
You think I don't ask myself that? What does the Lord see in me? And I don't know.
Yeah, that guy was pretty cool.
And Jaime
has one of the best character arcs
he does.
in the entire show.
Just the scene where they're all sitting down by the fire, Tyrion, Jaime, and all the other characters, Podrick, when they're all together. I mean, that's so great. It's so little. It's not epic like the fights we see later on, but it means so much. And then you get that third episode, The Long Night, which apparently a lot of people had complaints about. I think, Scott, you told me before that a lot of people said it was too dark and that
it was difficult to see exactly what was going on.
Right.
And that people thought the entire battle shouldn't be one episode, like you say. It should have been stretched out to a few episodes or a season.
If I may, Scott, if I may here...
I'm not really complaining. I liked it.
Too dark. So. Should it be in the grassy meadow, the sunshine shining, and we see the Night King flipping his hair in the sun? No, it's gonna be dark because That's what it is. It's the dead. They are fighting the dead. How dark can you get? How goth can you get? How emo can you get?
After that episode came the great battle. There were 2 great battles in the whole season, but the second one was the Battle of King's Landing, where it was very tense. Things were very tense. We were seeing if Daenerys' forces were going to attack, or if Cersei was going to peacefully surrender. But of course, she didn't surrender. So Daenerys took King's Landing by force, and that's not at all what Tyrion or Jon Snow wanted to happen. They wanted a peaceful surrender,
Right.
And as a result, Jon Snow had to do something very drastic because Daenerys was becoming a power-hungry tyrant.
Right. Oh, can I just go back for the defense of the long battle, the long night or whatever? It was an hour-and-a-half episode. While, yeah, it's kind of crazy that it was just one episode, it was a damn good episode.
Nobody's denying it's good.
No, it was. You saw the threat of the dead. They were wiping everyone out completely. You saw different phases of the battle, different characters having different character moments and fighting the tuchuses off, as the Jews say. And the only thing you can do, which they established in the show, is if you kill the leader, all the other dead are really dead, and that's what Arya did. Pretty much a very fitting moment.
I'm just happy it wasn't like that one episode of The Walking Dead where they're gonna finally kill Negan, but then everybody's guns malfunction and there's no big battle.
Here we go. Congratulations, Rick.
3, 2, 1.
Like, if that had happened, that would have been like the worst
No,
episode.
Negan's still around. He's still doing things even after Rick's gone.
Rick slit Negan's throat. This is not a Walking Dead episode, but Rick slit Negan's throat and he still lived.
And Negan he had like laryngitis for like 2 episodes and his voice got back. He goes, well, look who's back. But anyway, back to Game of Thrones. It's been teased since the very beginning that Daenerys has a dark side. She did a lot of questionable things to remain in power.
She was the ends justify the means kind of ruler.
But it's not like she is evil, we hate her. You sort of understand from her perspective. The bad guy in any story doesn't view themselves as the bad guy. Or at least good bad guys do that. Yeah, she was a tyrannical ruler, but she justified herself. She's like, if I do these terrible things, there will one day be peace. But when is this peace going to happen? And Varys warned against it.
Varys got fried. You remember that?
Yeah, oh, that scene where the dragon is looming behind Daenerys, I got chills. First of all, I love that character, Varys.
Yeah.
Who's pretty much like Billy Corgan. And Scott was doing this thing where he's hiding his arms in like sleeves like a Buddhist monk or something. And at the very end, when he knows he's going to be sentenced to his death, I mean, he takes his arms away, so he's not doing it anymore. He takes his rings off. I didn't realize he had rings. It was like the most shocking thing. I'm like, dude, if you're going to wear rings, at least show them off, man.
He probably
Even Frodo showed off his ring in Lord of the Rings, and that was a bad ring.
Look what I've got.
So he was the Billy Corgan of the show, the Smashing Pumpkins lead singer. He looks just like him. And so seeing his death was very tragic, especially for Tyrion, who was his friend. And Tyrion later realizes, although he's defending his queen, she's not so great. There's the 5th episode, which is one of the most traumatic episodes of television I've ever watched, probably the most, where she takes King's Landing, burns it to flames completely with her last remaining dragon. It was a very hard episode to watch, but that was the point. And so Tyrion understands that she kind of went bonkers. Jon Snow, who loves this girl, eventually realizes that. And so at the very end, the last episode, when he kills her, you really feel that weight.
I want to say one thing. I don't know if you're going to agree with me on
Sure.
this, but I really felt that Jon Snow and Daenerys' love was very forced, and it didn't really feel genuine.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst thing, but I definitely see that. I sort of felt it. It could have been handled better. But, I mean, that's one little flaw in this great masterpiece of a show in its entirety. You could be disappointed by the end of the show, but you can't say that Game of Thrones is a bad show because you didn't particularly like the ending.
Of course.
The score is fantastic. It looks great. The acting's superb. The writing, I can't see why people could just turn their backs on the show. So anyway, let's go to the end of the last episode. So Jon Snow sacrifices Daenerys, and the dragon comes in. He's ready to face death, but then the dragon completely blows away. Well, doesn't blow away like the big bad wolf. He flames on the throne that was been idolized for the whole entire show, and now it's reduced to ash. But then that is very symbolic, because the throne has been the cause of everyone's problems. It's sort of like the One Ring in Lord of the Rings, where it's this thing that people worship and love, but it brings chaos and madness and corrupts people. That's the key word, corruption.
It's all a metaphor for power.
Right. And so at the very end, all the main characters are deciding, what do we do from here now that all the rightful queens and kings are gone? And so they figure out that from now on, they're just going to choose their next ruler. So who do they choose? They could choose Jon Snow. They could choose Sam. They could choose Sansa, Arya, all these great characters. But they choose what people consider one of the weaker characters of the show, Bran.
They choose him to rule. I wasn't really a fan of that decision, but I don't really care either way, because that was the last episode. It was the end, so it's
okay. So I will agree with people that he doesn't become a great character. He kind of sucks. But here's the thing: he's someone who knows knowledge of all the past and all the present. He knows what is good. That's been established. So it may not be satisfying as a fan. We'd much rather have someone like Jon Snow. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it.
What do you mean?
He would be a good ruler.
He would be, but it just... Well, that's why I don't really care either way, because it was the end, right, and we're not really going to see what type of ruler he was.
Yeah, but here's the good thing. That
I know, he sees all, and he's a figurehead. He's not making the decisions.
Right. That's what's established. He has his council make the decisions. Yeah. He has his hand. Lord Tyrion, who's still around. You have Tyrion,
Bronn, the swordsman, Bronn, Sam.
Bronn's there, Sam. You have all these characters. Lady, who's now a knight. What's her name?
Brienne.
It's all of the B's of Burra.
Bronn, Brandon, Brienne.
Baron.
Barack Obama was in Game of Thrones.
Yes, so I'm always confused with those names. But they're all together, and it makes sense why they're all there. They're actually leading, so it becomes more of, I guess, a republic.
Yeah.
Than a true tyrannical monarchy, which has been the case for the entire show. So as Daenerys wanted to end the cycle and ultimately couldn't, the cycle, though, was ultimately ended, just not by her. And then at the end, we have very fitting ends for the Starks. You have Sansa, who's going to rule over Winterfell, and they're not going to be part of the Seven Kingdoms, which is now the Six Kingdoms. Arya is going to explore, and you have Jon Snow, who was sort of cast away, but he's with the wildlings. He's with his friend, the red-haired dude.
I love that guy. Not just for obvious reasons, but...
Yeah, he's just an awesome dude. So, honestly, not the best ending ever, but it was satisfying. Not the best season of television ever. Definitely not the best ending to a series ever. It could have been expanded to further seasons. It really could have. But for what we have, and this is all we have, I enjoyed it. I did. So I have to give it the nonsense seal of approval.
It wasn't complete nonsense because it made sense. but I enjoyed it, so I'll give it the seal of approval too.
We liked Game of Thrones Season 8. Hate us if you will. That's how it's going to be. Until we get ready to deal with those pitchforks, you could find us on Spotify, Anchor,
The same people
TuneIn.
who got mad about our Alvin and the Chipmunks are gonna get mad about this.
Yeah, we have a website, nonsensenewsnation.com. We're on SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us anywhere. And once again, my name is Brad Noss.
I'm Scott the Waz.
And we'll see you on the next Nonsense Review. Signing out.